Hey everyone, and welcome back to the second instance of the Timeless podcast. We called the last one episode 0, so I guess this one is still episode 1. And today we have a cool yap topic. We're going to talk about the fair unfair spectrum in Timeless. Now, the fair unfair spectrum isn't a new concept, it's something that is present in most formats of Magic, and it is the idea that being a combo deck is not a binary thing, nor is being a fair deck. You have decks like Show and Tell and Energy that classically sit at the ends of the spectrum, but you could have something in the middle, such as a mid-range deck with some sort of combo built into it, and decks can position themselves closer towards either end of the spectrum and sort of shift around as the meta evolves in order to position themselves better. And lately in Timeless, we saw a cool new Reanimator deck pop up that sort of exemplifies the idea that a deck can shift around in this spectrum.
Yeah, so Reanimator is kind of like most of the builds have been like Slot Machine was probably like the closest to Reanimator build before dedicated Reanimator, and it was just like really just trying to turbo out to be very unfair. The initial Arden Reanimator list was like a lot like that, but like you're playing cards that are disadvantaged like or your card disadvantage like Faithless Looting, right? And you're just trying to like buried alive into your big thing. Um, and it was like a good meta call for the Wednesday of that Timeless tournament, because there weren't really anyone packing Graveyard Hate. Um, but then you kind of like it kind of has been pivoting to like more of like this mid-rangey build with like Fables and like Barragoyfs and stuff like that. And so it's kind of pivoted from being like very very unfair into more into the fair with like this like unfair like backup plan where you also like just kind of have these nut draws, which is like kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see because this is the sort of deck that was really well positioned to do this in the first place because it happens to play a lot of really fair mid range pieces. Like if you're playing a reanimative sort of deck, a kind of card you would want to put in your deck is maybe Fable the Mirror Breaker to have the looting effect in your deck. You probably want to have Grief in a fair reanimate deck anyway, and reanimate is just a really good fair tempo piece for reanimating your actual threats, even if they don't cost like 7 or 8 mana. So this deck was in like a really unique position that it could actually like slide along this spectrum really cleanly as people started to target it.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, like in terms of deck building, you kind of already like want some trolls in your black decks if you're like trying to like dodge strip mine a bit, and then like you already kind of want to run griefs if you're on reanimate, and so it's not like you can play troll reanimate grief in like a lot of like reasonable packages, and so they're not like giving up a lot to just be having those like powerful black cards, right?
Exactly, and then you shift from a dedicated reanimator deck to something that looks very much like those normal mid-range decks, except you just play the package of 3 Buried Alive with like 1 Arden, 1 Atraxa to hit, and that's only 5 cards in your deck. It's a really small package for the upside that it brings. You can kind of consider like Faithless Looting Fable as part of that package as well. But another cool thing is that, maybe the meta could have shifted in another way, where this ended up being the only card or the only deck that's really trying to abuse the graveyard, which means people aren't running graveyard hate, and people are running a lot of things that can hate on mid-range threats and shut down mid-range threats because the meta is mid-range dominated. So the way that you can win mid-range mirror matches is by having your unfair package in the deck, and in that case, you would lean even further into it. You would be playing more copies of Buried Alive, you'd be playing more copies of Atraxa, you would be playing more ways to discard, you would go up to 3 or 4 copies of Life Death, and like really try to become much more of an unfair deck.
But like yeah, we're right now we are like pretty mid-rangey, I would say in the timeless meta, and so like yeah, it's tricky to know which way to like want to like push your deck into, and it really like Corey was saying, it depends on the hate, and then if you're like because if there's just only mid-range decks, if you going into mid-range, like you're just going to be slightly worse than all the other like fair decks, and it's just like not really like a good axis to fight on. Versus like if you're like the mid-range deck and like a meta full of like show and tell and like other like unfair decks, you actually get a lot of game just through your like base interaction of like griefs and stuff like that and your thought seizes, and you actually like your fair game plan looks really really good in comparison, right?
Yeah, and we can also like rephrase this argument and get like off of the Reanimator deck really quickly because it is only one of many decks in the format, and like different decks have pivoted themselves like on and off of fair game plans in the past. Like even something that you traditionally think of as super super unfair, like Show and Tell. the current Bant Show and Tell builds like have absolutely no way to win the game fairly at all. They other than maybe turning a Cyber Siphon or sideways, there's no way to win the game without casting the card Show and Tell. However, in the past, we had metas where people weren't packing appropriate removal and people were taking out all of their removal spells against Show and Tell. So Show and Tell players pivoted and they started playing 4 Psychic Frogs, and there were some players that even played Psychic Frogs in the main deck of Show and Tell to take advantage of this situation in the meta.
Yeah, that was a qualifier weekend, especially day two, where people were like expecting a lot of show and tell mirrors. And show and tell didn't traditionally run removal in the main. Yeah, the main deck frogs were called. Yeah, I think some of them also ran like a one of Crows and Grip in the main. It was yeah, it's like this very like yeah, and again this is like show and tell pivoting into more of a mid range role against an expected field of show and tell, right?
Yeah, and I think sort of the takeaway here is if you look at both these situations in aggregate, is that if you're expecting mirrors, getting yourself in a different position, like giving yourself more axes to play on, gives yourself an advantage in the mirror because it's that classic game of who's on the beatdown in Magic, and if you have both a fair and an unfair plan, you have multiple angles of attack, and you can win games that your opponents won't have a chance of winning.
Yeah, and I would say like one of the notable meta shifts that has like just for like ladder play against like basically like closed deck lists, there's a lot less Lurrus in the format. Whereas like previously when you had this kind of like fairish game plan with like say you had frogs and show and tell and you're just like on the ladder, right? If you queue into a Lurrus deck, you probably know that your frog is going to be you like have a good chance of knowing your frog is going to be bad, and you can mulligan around that. Whereas like now, there are so few Lurrus decks that like you're just not getting as much like information in your first like in game one in your mulligans, which also kind of hurts the strategy a little bit. That's like a bit more uh like balanced, I guess.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Remember when there were Lurrus combo decks that were running around too? Like Underworld Breach is a really classic example of this one. It's a good combo deck that happens to have a lot of fair threats into it. It used to play Dragon's Rage Channeler and just a couple of other cards that could turn sideways, but at the end of the day, you were trying to play Underworld Breach and win with that. And in different matchups, you would like actually lean on your Dragon's Rage Channeler to turn sideways and win most of the games through hate pieces on your graveyard.
Yeah, yeah. Jetstorm did the same thing too. It was just like, and it was because Show and Tell was built like so like to be so one dimensional. It was like a really reasonable game plan, which was really neat. And like I thought those the post board games against Show and Tell were like some of the more interesting ones in the format.
Yeah, and this also just plays into sideboarding too, because you have to dedicate sideboard slots to beating your mirror, right? If you're playing against Show and Tell, you have to bring in your hate against them. And if Show and Tell is pivoting into 4 Psychic Frogs, you also need to keep in your removal spells, which means it is very difficult to actually have slots in your deck to deal with all that. And it's the same thing with Reanimator. Do you have slots in your deck to play your Graveyard Hate and play your creature removal spells? I think most decks in Timeless do right now, which is why a lot of people are kind of struggling. I don't want to say people are struggling with the Graveyard or with the Reanimator deck, but it's why it's not a tier 1 deck. People are able to do this, but there are times in the meta, such as when Show and Tell demanded a lot of dedicated hate, that people also could not squeeze Swords to Plowshares into their deck post board, and it created this odd mind game where even if you didn't have the Psychic Frogs in your deck or you didn't bring in the Psychic Frogs, it would still cause your opponent to board incorrectly or overboard and slow down their own game plan.
Yeah, and even like if you're on ladder and you're like you have a Show and Tell opponent, like it's really like or at least like now today, right? It's you don't expect them to bring in frogs ever, like right? So you're generally cutting a lot of your removal. But I think some of the issue too with this is that because there are so many like one drops and like high impact creatures that are like must be answered in the format right now. Um, a lot of people are on like 10-ish like removal spells. And so like for a lot of matchups, you can't even fully board out like you can't board out of like all your removal anyways. Which is also
Yeah,
kind of
it's a
something to think about.
really bad time for it because like energy is still going to keep in their static prisons at the very least against you. Like it's just a free card to keep in. There's just so much white removal that's running around right now, which is another reason why it's kind of tough to play Reanimator. I wonder if there's room for like a spell combo to squeeze into the meta now. because people are generally just running a lot of creature hate. I wonder if something like Underworld Breach Alaris could come back or something along those lines.
Yeah, it could. The thing is like you still kind of want to play. I do think there's a bit less white removal. Like lately, at least what I've seen. Like it could work because like again, like white removal is generally better into like the like if you're getting fatal pushed instead of like swords, like that's really impactful for like your citrus supplier, your DRC fueling like breach. That really does add up. I would say, yeah, no, it's definitely possible, but you're still like not creatureless, which like kind of sucks. There is, yeah, I know. Like speaking of like, I guess like I know some people have been trying like hydroponics architect and like show and tell.
Oh yeah, I saw that
And
too. That was a really good innovation that I did want to ask people about because I saw it randomly on Ladder for the first time, and it seems like a great idea. So the deck building cost for hydroponics is like really low. You pretty much just need fetch lands and islands, or not even islands in your deck. You just need blue fetch lands. And show and tell is already going to run at least 8 of them, maybe 12, depends on
I think they're
how
generally on
much they're
like 10
running.
because they'll like run a dig. They like having their two surveil lands.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Actually, they are really greedy on the number of fetches they run. So this is a one drop that will draw you a card every turn. I think a long time ago we mentioned Frog a lot, but Show and Tell tried Tameo too in that slot. And I'm
Hmm.
sure there was a build where someone had 8 creatures, 4 Frog, 4 Tameo, and their Show and Tell list, and it was kind of crazy, but it might have worked.
Yeah, but again, like I think you kind of have to like think about like the sideboard mapping stuff, like when it's appropriate to bring in like hydroponics as like show and tell, and it's like people do try and board out like pretty much all the removal against show and tell, and then like I know in the show and tell, I think the show and tell mirror was like the primary tech for it. Um, Generally you're boarding out like all your swords and stuff. To, like you just bring in so many cards to the mirror. It's like you bring in like your carpets, you bring in your commandeers, you bring in like Orm's Chant. You just have a bunch of like shit that you're like bringing in. That you have enough outs for your removal. And like I think show and tell is kind of like uniquely positioned because everyone like has a lot of sideboard cards for it. But again, it's still possible that like people still have like too much removal in the main deck, and it's still like but it's an interesting idea for sure.
Yeah, but the meta is also changing too, and like I've been playing a lot of mono red for fun now that we have broadside, trying to play like red prison, even some red aggro. And the only removal spells you have in those decks are red, and I'm gonna cut every single one against Show and Tell. And I have a lot of sideboard slots dedicated to Show and Tell because I don't have a lot of the good white interaction and I don't have discard. So something like a Hydroponics Juke would actually just draw a card every single turn against my deck. I don't think I would have anything in to answer it. And if I left cards in to answer it for game 3, then those are cards that are otherwise dead if they don't have a Hydroponics on board.
You say that, but like if you think about how much removal mono red actually gets, right? It's like they're generally only like 7 to 8 bolts with chain lightning and lightning bolt, and then they play 4 fury. So that's like 11, like just say, 11, 12 removal spells right there. And then Bombardier turns any of their like Chromoxes into a shock, right? So like they do actually have some good answers for it, even if you like really like even if they really like even if you board out like 8 removal spells, they'll still have about like 8 answers to it. Granted, like the Bombardier is a bit less clean, but it's still like there in the deck, you know? So I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is really interesting though, because like someone did play this against me on ladder. It was like 2 days ago. I can't remember what I was playing, but it surprised me a lot and I didn't have removal spells in hand. And they actually did draw like 3 cards off the hydroponics. I'm pretty sure I just like easy bacon killed them anyway, but I can
Mhm.
definitely imagine it being good. Like hydroponics is just like a straightforward card. Same thing with frog. Like they don't really need enablement. They are
Yeah.
just creatures, they need to stay in play, they need to be answered.
Yeah, it's been kind of yeah. How have you felt about the change from Bant like back to Sultai? I haven't seen a bunch of it on ladder. I know it's kind of like people seem to be liking Sultai again, but I haven't like fully experienced it a ton yet.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen enough actual like show and tell players to say what direction it's going in. I did really like the old Bant build. I still think it's correct. I still think white build is or white removal is quite good in the format right now, especially as people are just like playing mid-range whatever piles. Sultai does have a lot of power. Having the extra tutors is nice. But I did like the Bant stock up build. It was less color intensive. It got to play stock up instead of like assemble the team and bargain. So it was a little bit better off in a strip mine meta. Though I'm not a show and tell expert, so I'm not sure what direction the deck is going to go in, but it's interesting that they have a lot of different options for building the deck. And they get Ponder, of course, so the deck needs a rebuild anyway.
Wonder, yeah. And just in general, like the four like usually they would run like 3 veils ish, or but like 4 veils seems like very correct now with just like how much like black and blue is running around.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another way that decks can kind of like position themselves, even if it's not a direct slide on the fair unfair spectrum. They can essentially pre-board against various forces in the meta by playing 4 copies of Veil of Summer main deck. And I think that is really strong. Like another good example of not necessarily a fair unfair slide, I guess you can kind of call it a slide from fair to super fair, is how energy sometimes reconfigures its deck to beat other energy decks. You could think of normal Mardu energy with Luris, and that's a strong deck to begin with, but it actually loses to even more fair creature slop, if you want to call it that. So if somebody's playing like 4 Flage, 4 One Ring, and all the energy creatures, you will tend to lose that. And it's been interesting because like I've played around with it before and I can never settle on which one is definitively better. Well, Mardu is better versus combo matchups, but then every so often everyone's going to be playing Mardu. Somebody comes along with a One Ring version of the deck and beats it, and then I say, okay, let's build One Ring with discard, and then it doesn't quite work out because the whole ends up being less than the sum of the parts. So it's interesting to see that decks can slide around even if it's not directly on the spectrum in response to the meta.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think the biggest thing that happened, like that I remember that happening with Abzan Ritual, where there's this big kind of like agreed upon like school of thought that Abzan Ritual beat Mardu Energy, right?
Yeah, that deck
And
fell off. I'm looking for it on the tier list. It ain't here.
yeah, it's gone. It's
It's
gone.
gone, man.
But yeah, no, I mean everyone just thought like Abzan beats Mardu Energy. Like everyone had like pretty good results against it on ladder. And then I think we tested it first thing. We made like some changes. I think we swapped out, we added in One Rings and Flages, and it just ran over Abzan Ritual, right? And then like
Yeah, and you kept like discard in to hit their ritual. Peddler definitely stayed in. I think Portable Hole, which is good for energy mirrors anyway, ended up getting played as 4 copies because Birthing Ritual is really the key card. Even if you have a One Ring in play, they can outgrind you with the Birthing Ritual, which is crazy. But if you manage to exile it, what are they gonna do? Torpor Orb
yeah.
also was a really crazy meta call, if you remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah, I
That
remember
was
that.
the
Yeah,
crazy innovation that we figured out. It was specifically us that figured it out.
yeah. No, I remember. I think I remember. I messaged you. I was like, because
Yes,
you,
it was
you
your
didn't
idea.
have four torpor orbs like crafted, and they're mythics, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I did not have them crafted, but you convinced me, and it
yeah,
was
I was like,
very
look,
strong.
like I understand if you want to save the mythics for the weekend, but like I do think like if you want to like beat ritual and stuff, and like Marty, like play 4 of torpor orb. It's very very good.
Yeah, no, it
Um,
was it was an insane meta call for like that particular tournament.
yeah, I think we actually I think when EOE came out, we actually Riley and I tried a main deck torpor orb Eldrazi build to kind of like capitalize on like a lot of these like to as like a way to like beat energy, and then also like none of your creatures are really affected by it or care about it anyways. It ended up not playing very well, but like you can Torpor Orb still felt like it was very well positioned about like a month or two ago. I would say, or like probably like 2 months ago. I would say.
Yeah,
EOE.
and an interesting like corollary on that, or a good tangent to go on, is the Shift and Tell deck. It no longer exists. I'll dig up a deck list so I could put it on screen. But that was a combo deck that almost operated on a different axis. It was very slow, and it did technically have like a fair backup plan. It could put on some beats with Eldrazi, especially if you put Torpor Orb in and then invoked a Null Drifter. And I just find like that deck's existence fascinating. Like it managed to be a good deck for like a year, despite on paper being a deck that seems way too slow and does not properly interactive for the format.
Yeah, and that I think that was like I think like it was like Esper Tempo and Shift were like some of the only decks we tested that did well against Mardu. I like 8 discard Marty specifically. I think everything
Like,
else kind of got blown up, and like I think like Black White Belcher, um, was it? There's another I don't know, just Black White Belcher and Show and Tell. I remember just getting shredded by 8 discard
yeah, well,
Mardu
greedier
in open
energy
decklist.
beat energy. That was the only other good answer. But yeah, this deck could beat energy just by hiding behind its One Rings, and it was rather immune to discard, because regular discard like Thoughtseize just sends the creature to the graveyard, which is where you want it anyway, and Juggernaut Peddler is good against them, but there's enough cards that they can top deck where they can just top deck out of the situation. They top deck a Cash Grabber, Malevolent Rumble, that grabs the One Ring, and then now they've bought another turn, they've drawn 3 cards off the ring, they've drawn into something good, and they stole the game, essentially.
Yeah. And it like yeah, Nugen's Binding helped catch it all, and now the deck is just super dead. I just overnight.
Yeah,
I think I might have
Stripmine
even took
murdered this deck, unfortunately, but it's really cool how a deck can position itself relative to the metagame.
yeah, and like there is kind of this void now of like having like inevitability. Like it used to kind of like there was like combo, there was like these fair deck, like if there's combo, there was energy, um, and then there was like tempo, and then like there's kind of like the sub genre of like combo and or of like dark ritual combo and show and tell combo. But like then you also kind of had this other axis of like inevitable combo with shifting woodland, and that is just completely gone now. I think with the amount of strip mine running around in the meta, which is like again just crazy that whole like archetype and like way to win games has versus discard has like disappeared overnight.
Yeah, and I wonder if like an inevitability deck could come back. It would just have to be a new build. Like there's still room for it. It's just that in the past, lands were safe. There was no great way to interact with lands. Blood Moon was in the format, but it wasn't played very much. There were marginal land destruction effects like Ghost Court or White Orchid Phantom, and yeah, you could build a pile with all of those, but that deck was never good. Therefore, you can lean on Shifting Woodland as your inevitability tool. Is it possible today to build a deck that just like somehow always plays long games and always draws into some weird funky combo on turn 6? I have no clue.
No,
Maybe.
it's weird. I feel like the like closest thing to that, and it's like a very boring answer is just like decks that play the One Ring, and they just like
Yeah.
kind of do the One Ring things, right? And you just know they're going to win the long game because they have a One Ring and down early.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
And
a lot
that's
less interesting.
yeah, it's kind of like almost what Golgari is doing right now. Like they are obviously trying to be turbo stompy and get the One Ring out early, but one of the reasons why the deck is quite good is that it can grind forever. If it sticks a One Ring or it sticks a Barrowglyph, and the Barrowglyph doesn't die, it just keeps gaining life, it keeps stalling, it keeps digging through its deck, it keeps getting more cards, and then like eventually they put together like a Shieldred overwhelming board state that you can't beat, or they eventually draw into their strip lock combo.
Yeah, I will say that though that like I think Golgari actually like loses a lot into like with the new like bombardiers like decks coming out is like you can outrace Bargrowth if you have a bombardiers. It's not
Oh
that hard. You
yeah,
can yeah, it's
Bombardiers is
like
crazy. I love that
yeah,
card
are they
so
like
much.
or what's it? They like reanimate, or is it they cycle troll reanimated? They're at 14, and you just go, "Thank you." All right, like
Yeah,
even
it's
better if
so
they shock it.
good.
They shock in a an overgrown tomb.
Did Troll Reanimate somehow get worse in the meta? Like, Troll Reanimate is famously bad against energy. Is it somehow worse now that Bombardier is running
Yeah,
around?
definitely. No, because it's just like I mean, how many games have you like won at like 8 life as like green black, right? Or you just like you are you like hope you like you know you tap out and you play like a Barrowglyph and you go, okay, I need to connect with this next turn. And if you didn't grief him or something, like you're really opening yourself up to like some bullshit out of Bombardier, I think. I've even had it like as like mono red against other mono red or against like other Bombardier like decks that are on red. Um, you almost have to be like careful about like what turn you're playing a ring on because if you like you play out your One Ring and they don't really have any threats in play, it's like it's kind of a waste of the protection because like Bombardier just threatens if they get like 2 Bombardiers down like on the when you untap or like and you like don't have protection from One Ring and you don't have like good removal, you're just kind of dead. So you
Yeah.
actually like have to be very careful about sequencing around their like sorcery or like it's not sorcery speed, but like their turn that they can burn you out from there.
Yeah, that
You have
was
to be very, very careful.
always. Yeah, it's always sort of a thing versus energy playing One Ring. Because I remember being asked about it before in the past, like when I played a lot of Shift, is that I had a lot of turns where I had the opportunity to jam the One Ring and I didn't. And the answer is because energy tries to set up a really like explosive board to one shot you, more or less. And if I just jam the One Ring on turn 2 or 3 before they're ready, I'm pretty much just giving them the turn back to just play a bunch of creatures, and then on the following turn, they will literally one-shot me. So the correct play pattern in that situation is just to get as low as you can, where you're just barely out of one-shot range, and then play your ring, and then try to chain rings for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and then probably I mean, the bad news that is coming with like Bombardier and Gut is they all want to play Ancient Tomb, and if you're playing Ancient Tomb, you're kind of already priced into playing the One Ring.
Yeah.
So I could, yeah. I mean, I just see that happening a lot, right? Like I don't like if you're playing Ancient Tomb, you're probably playing One Ring. I don't see like a real way around that without like having a really good reason.
Yeah. One Ring's just a pillar of the format at this point, especially now that we have Ancient Tomb, and it is absolutely not going anywhere.
And it's a pull and it's like and Bomba pulls you into One Ring, wanting One Ring more, right? Too, because you just get to bail out with Bomba and do 6 damage. Um,
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah. A lot of
You can bail
people
out with
ask,
Gut
like,
too.
what's the pillars of the format in Timeless, and I think, like, the One Ring definitely deserves to be seen as, like,
It
the pillar of fair decks in this format more than energy now.
Yeah, like fair in quotations. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's fair in quotations. Energy is also fair in quotations. It's in a Johnny plus Bombardment combo deck,
Yeah.
which now we
Yeah,
have
definitely.
2 more cards that we can play 4 of that flip a Johnny, which is fantastic.
Yeah. The amount of One Rings that I've seen has definitely like gone up. Like it kind of used to be a joke if they were playing One Ring and they weren't like exactly like Boros Energy or like Shift and Tell, I would say. But now like so many different decks are running One Ring that it's just like it's kind of prevalent.
You know, another interesting discussion point for, like, the fair unfair spectrum is the red decks. Where would you put, like, the current red builds with bombardiers on, like, that fair unfair spectrum?
I don't know. I've had so many like it does not feel like a fair card. I'm gonna say that. It's just it's one thing to burn for like 3 when you're attacking, but like when it has evasion and it can just like burn 6, burn 7 at like a given time, like I kind of had this trouble. So like I kind of had this trouble when I was playing Jetstorm and like the energy matchup is like energy has so many different like combinations of cards that they can draw that like, oh, they could deal like 6 or 7 points of burn randomly if they untap with like 4 mana, right? Just because they like have outs to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Or they could just have like a peddler. Um, but like when you try doing that math with like Bombardier, it's like an extra like it's like 9 damage a burn versus like 6, right? Um,
Yeah, and it can combine with
so
the other things as well for just a stupid amount of damage out of nowhere.
yeah, so generally, yeah, I think they're just and because they're also using they're just always playing Tomb. I would say it's like it's definitely like less fair than One Ring or like sorry than like the standard like Luris like value energy and stuff. Um, and like yeah, I've just had games where like I think I had a game against like some like red white build where like they didn't have removal for Bombardier and I just proceeded to kill like all their creatures. They never had a good double block because I just like I had the boast trigger up and like they always had like a 1/2 or like a 1/1 as their second blocker. Yeah, it doesn't feel very fair. Especially if decks are like playing like, you know, if they're ever running like Magus of the Moon with it and stuff like that, they tend to just like want to find ways to like kind of cheat the game and like go face a ton. I mean, same with like stacking Pyrograves. If you ever like Kiki Jiki, what's it, like Fables, like Kiki Jiki, if you ever do that on like a Bombardier, the game's over. If you ever do that on a Pyrograph, the game's like pretty over. Um, they have just a lot of outs to like these like really unfair turns, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned
Yeah.
Magus. The deck can actually build itself, like, more unfair. It could also try to play Chalice of the Void in the main deck. It could play Eat Moon effects. Like, you can play even more of a prison deck. You play Thorn of Amethyst, like I tried for a bit.
Yeah. I don't think, yeah, I mean, I don't think Thorn is it. Just, but yeah, you
Definitely not
can,
now. Not that we
yeah,
landed in the mid-range slot meta.
yeah. And also, like, I think, like, Ragavan was already kind of an unfair card. And then when you add Strip Mine to it, it's just like, it gets more snowbally. And the fact that you just keep multiples now, yeah, I don't know. There's just some games where you just go like, you know, Mountain Ragavan. Okay, they remove it. Okay, Strip Mine Ragavan again, and it's just like you're almost like
Yeah.
time warping them a bit, and everyone's just down cards.
Yeah, and in the
Nothing about that deck
mirror,
feels fair. Yeah,
yeah. In the mirror, I think you want to be as unfair as possible, right? Some of those unfair pieces like Blood Moon and Chalice don't really interact with the deck, but if you had a way to be more unfair in the mirror, you would want it, right?
yeah. Well, what you saying in the mirror?
Yeah, if you're playing a mono red mirror, would you want to be somehow more fair and more unfair and more explosive, or would you want to
Yeah.
have more threats, more like pyroglyph cards
I've
that are just good mid-range cards?
I've kind of like the more mid-rangey cards in the mirror personally, just because like but also like a lot of these builds that are running Chalice, they'll also run like Mox Opal, and they were playing with like a lot more artifacts, and then they're kind of like. So I've actually in my mono red build, I for a while I was trying two of the artifact red lands to be able to just like throw and with Bombardier. And what happened is when I got a couple of these mono red mirrors where they were on this more prisony build that you're talking about. And those decks are actually really bad against Meltdown because they're running like more stuff to enable Metalcraft. And so I actually switched those artifact lands back to mountains just for the sake of like being able to melt down against those prisony decks. Um, I think the issue is that like, and sometimes they executed it where like they had a chalice on 1 and a chalice on 3, and I still beat them because I like happened to draw Pyroglyph.
That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, I think you really just like, or you just like hardcast a Fury. I think that it's just like you're trying to be too prisony in this like unhinged format a bit. And I think you'd rather just play the assertive threats at least for right now. Um,
Yeah. Unhinged
like
is the
if
right word for current timeless. Like it's a
yeah.
very it's interesting because I was thinking about this before. A lot of people are playing subtlety now, for example, because a lot of decks are like kind of all in on turn one. Even if you're playing fair, you're trying to like Dark Ritual into Barrowglyph or something on turn one, or turn two Wary Zone Guard. Something that needs to be disrupted, and like subtlety can even answer it. And like the thought even crossed my mind lately of, blue copers want force of will, but I would think it's unhealthy for the format. But the more that we have these really like explosive draws where people are all in on one creature or all in on the one ring, even in fair decks, I feel like force of will could actually one day become a welcome part of the format. Whereas in the past, my take has always been, oh no, it's just going to stifle a bunch of decks and make show and tell too good.
Yeah, I'm like open to it. I think a year
I
ago I was
pivoted
like
into
completely
the
turned off by
force
the idea.
argument. We weren't supposed to have this today.
No, no force arguments. Yeah. Let's see. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I played like, I mean, even like turn two Bombardier is like incredibly threatening, right? Like, I think I was playing against like Novos. Sorry, Novos. I was playing against Novos on it was blue black, and they had a turn two frog. I had a Bombardier, and then I just like they didn't have their subtlety. He had Commandeer instead of subtlety, and then I go like Bombardier attack. He can't block with frog. And then I play Fury and I target his frog. He has 3 cards in hand, so he can sacrifice his whole hand to like have the frog live and then get killed by the Fury. Or he can have the frog die and then I deal 7 to his face. Right? Whereas like I don't know, there's a lot of like just really strong lines that even like subtlety, I don't like it's nice to have subtlety, but there are just a lot of forcing lines now, even like out of the creature decks. Um that yeah, subtlety
Yeah.
is like definitely felt better.
Yeah, and it's
Whereas at
it's
least like
like
if he can
a
subtlety the yeah.
it's like a race to the bottom, honestly, is what it feels like. It feels like everyone is just trying to be as quick as they can with their creature decks and trying to figure out like what are the most explosive lines right now, because everyone's just trying to be on the play and winning quickly. Would it be
Yeah, and
possible to
yeah.
position your deck to beat that if you were making like a new fair on fair deck?
Yeah, and I think like two is the thing was like you don't always know that your turn one chalice is going to be good in the dark. And you have to like build around chalice, which means like not playing one drops. One drops are good. Uh, so you have some matchups where even if you like if they get a one drop down before you play, like if they get a architect down, hydroponics architect down before you play your chalice on one, it's a disaster. Um, but also like you don't have this like there is a lot of comfort in just like playing a Ragavan and going like, okay, they have to deal with this, and if they play creatures out and I remove them, it's kind of they're kind of in trouble, right? Like whereas like you just don't have that assertiveness coming out of a chalice on one.
Yeah, there are very few lock pieces that feel like sure wins against the format right now. Blood Moon as
Yeah,
well. It's not a sure win.
yeah, and it's like yeah, when people like try and talk about
Like
like vintage a bit, and it's like vintage had like Void Mirror, they have like Vexing Bauble, like they have a lot of like very like there's just not as much of a catch-all like prison piece as they're like in Timeless right now.
Yeah, you know what the sure wins on turn one are? Ragavan, Hydro Homie, Tameo. How about that?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I think like I think Timeless would really need something like equivalent to like a Trinisphere on one to
Yeah. Trinisphere would be
or,
cool. That's such a
like
toxic card, but I'm down for it
it's a
right
super
now.
toxic card. But I'm like I think that's the kind of power level you would need to like have an assertive like prison start, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's such a toxic card. I wonder, like, would that even go in Dark Ritual decks? Like, you Dark Ritual into that too. It wouldn't just be red decks trying to play it.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably
I
just
don't
play
know.
with like Tomb and shit, and it's like probably fine. Because
Yeah.
like it kind of encourages you wanting to have like constant mana and not fast mana, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does turn off Dark Ritual once you put it into play, so things like Tomb are better.
Yeah, and then you like need to find out how to get back to 3 mana versus like if you already have like a 2 mana Chromox in play, you're already like you've already solved that problem in your start, right?
Who said anything about getting back to 3 mana? You can just have your opponent concede.
That works too. Yeah, that also that also works. Oh, I want to talk about Dark Ritual decks on ladder. They tend to ladder like faster than anything else because you end up getting like these like 5 to 6 minute matches sometimes, and like sometimes opponents just concede game two. If you catch an opponent that just isn't prepared for the matchup, you can just have like this 80-20 matchup that they can't really deal with. Um,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
and it's
it's
a
been a lot of
frustrating tilting 80-20 for your opponent. Like I've had
oh
people
yeah,
scoop
people, yeah,
BO3s after
people,
game one.
yeah. And so I think like we've both hit top 10 with like two different Dark Ritual decks. In the past with like I think Sorin Storm and Slot Machine.
Yeah.
And I think recently Muxus has hit it with the Turbo Necro Sorin build that he was playing, and it's kind of like this kind of like nice. I don't know. It's interesting. Is like it's disproportionately better on ladder because it plays faster. And also you don't your opponent doesn't have the advantage of knowing you're on Dark Ritual game one, right? And like that affecting their keeps. Um,
Yeah, you get a lot of odd percentage points. His deck is also a lot more all in. Like we did the Mulligan like map, and this is a topic I know we want to do for another video, but like we looked at it and compared it to like Black White Belcher, for example. Black White Belcher might have more overall keepable lines, especially on 6 and 7. It might have turn one kills pretty frequently. Well, not pretty frequently, it's like 0.5%, but still it has something that can go that's going for it, right? But the Muxus deck can mulligan all the way down to 3. And Muxus is the kind of guy where he's just going to do that every day when he's playing ladder. He's
he
just
asked,
going to
yeah,
go to
no,
3.
yeah, no, he asked me, he's like, do I have better twos? Like, he's like, you kind of have to go
That's
in, like, which I respect.
crazy.
Yeah, it's
But
very good
like,
understanding.
yeah, like, but it's like a legitimate question because I played a lot of Black White Belcher. Actually, that's 3 decks I've hit top 10 with that are Dark Ritual decks. It's
Oh, yeah,
Shitstorm,
Belcher,
Slot
yeah, yeah.
Machine,
Oh,
and
you're right.
Belcher.
Mhm.
When I play Belcher, when I get like where I end up mulliganing to 4. 4 is a really low number for the deck. I have kept hands that are like, okay, I just need to draw black mana, and there's 28 black mana sources in the deck. So I'm okay to keep like Dark Ritual, Necro, a junk card, and then just hope I draw the black source. It's better than going to 2 or 3. And like in Muxus's deck, you could literally mulligan to 2, keep Dark Ritual, Necro, and that's a reasonable keep because he plays like
For
20
your two, yeah.
untapped black mana that are all painless.
Yeah. No, one of my favorites of I think Black White Belcher was if you were on the draw, if I was on the draw, and I got this a couple times, and you kept a 3 card hand of like Ritual, Sorin Alinda, and then you drew into the mana source on turn one and played it, and your opponent knows you mulled a 3, so they knew you drew some part of that combo. Um, I always really enjoyed that because it just had an extra tilt value attached to
Psychic
it.
damage. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Um, what's it? But yeah, so it's like it's kind of interesting too. Is like also like these like ideas of like sideboard jukes on ladder um end up playing a lot better too because like your opponent just doesn't know what you're going to board into. I think for a while like Muxus was trying like Barragoyf, and then he was trying the Shadow Mortality,
Yeah, you
and
can
then he like
always board
yeah
these decks more fair and just play fair things off of your Dark Rituals, which will always catch off ladder players. Like the Belcher deck plays Sorin Alenda. You can just play more stupid Dark Ritual cards like Barrowglyph, like you said. I think Muxus a week or two ago, I played against him before he solidified his current build of the Storm list, and he had the One Ring in it. And I was not expecting him to just like Dark Ritual into a one ring post board when I was playing Energy, and I'm like, well, he bought a turn, and then he just won on his next turn.
Yeah, I think I think I like commandeered a duress or something, and then he had like Necro One Ring. Uh, and like I think his other card was like Grief, and I couldn't hit it with duress, right? It was just like I just
That's so
yeah,
funny.
that sucks. Um, yeah, I guess, and it is like and I know like with Black White Belcher, I was like I like before the deck was like published, I was like, hey Tommy, like please wait on your article. Like I'm doing really well in ladder. I want to try and like see how far this can get. You know, because you do lose an amount of
Oh,
equity as soon as
absolutely.
you
I
publish all
know
your
it
board
myself,
plans and stuff
but
like that.
I'm the
Yeah,
guy who gets the publicity. Like the moment
yeah.
I put a video out, the deck gets teched for, or people copy it. That's the
Well,
wave
yeah,
one, and then
no,
wave two,
it's
people
not
beat
like
it.
yeah, and it's not even like people are like well, it's people are playing it, but then it's also like people are playing it now to where it makes sense for everyone else that's on ladder to tech for it.
Exactly.
And it's
Yeah.
like there were four like I think Slot Machine lasted for like a day and a half, I think, before you posted.
Yeah, before
And
people were
then
putting containment priests in their freaking
there were four
sideboards.
containment priests in every sideboard. Yeah. And it just like, oh, that's just a deck building thing you do for like this week now because
Oh
Slot
my
Machine is
God.
popular and it folds to containment priests because it was built
Yeah.
before people were running four of containment priests.
And the
Um,
format is so small too that like if just a couple dozen people switch up their deck choice on ladder, it really matters. Like
you feel
these
it, yeah.
decks get their reach is much larger than the reach I have. I know it's a small format, but like my videos don't reach everybody. And not
Mhm.
everybody's in my Discord. But if enough people see the green black list and they say, "Wow, this is really good," and they all start playing it, it reaches everybody, even people with no social
Or
media.
they
They
say,
will
wow, this is
see the
really
list on
bullshit.
ladder. They will play
Yeah.
against it because it's 25% of ladder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
even take the I live in a cave with no social media approach to this format. The Discord mafia is just such a large percentage of the player base that you will notice the latest inventions.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of neat just to see like because there was no video made on the Turbo Necro Sorin deck, so but it was kind of neat to see like a Dark Ritual deck do like really well in the format again, and then not like we basically like his spot never got blown up, if that makes like in a way. Like he was just like able to kind of like mix and match like he was just trying different sideboard strategies, like like and they were all like kind of working. No one was really anticipating them, and they were still like really well positioned. Um and like it was like this would be cool to do a video on it, but I also know if you do a video on it, um
Yeah, then
it
that's the end
justifies
of us
more
playing
commentaries and
Dark
stuff like that.
Ritual. Like, we
Yeah,
can't play Dark Ritual for the next month because everyone's just
yeah,
going to keep the unfair hate in their sideboards, even if we stop playing it for a week
yeah.
or
No,
two.
that happened with Soren Storm too. Was I think Soren Storm came out like the Monday or Sunday. The guide came out like the Monday before a big tournament on Sunday, on like the 1K,
Oh,
and
yeah, we
then
got cooked in the tournament. I remember I
Esper
got
Tempo.
cooked.
Yeah, and then Esper Tempo dropped like that Tuesday, and they just like,
Blue
and then
Mages
the deck was like
counterdecking
pretty
me
done. Yeah,
again. This is the eternal cycle.
yeah. So
Blue
you kind of
Mages.
like do make your deck a target if you like evangelize it enough, kind of thing, and like. I could see Mono Red getting targeted, or Mono Red is now like maybe valid for getting targeted a little bit.
Oh,
I know I've been
definitely.
climbing. I think I hit number 10 earlier today, just like on ladder with it.
Yeah, it's very
I've
popular
seen some
right
other people
now.
playing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
yeah, people want to play with Bomba.
I
So
think the meta cycle can like warrant an episode of its own of
Mhm.
whenever a new set drops or just a new deck drops, there's always first that proactive deck that dropped that's the level 1 drop. It could be Sorin Storm. Level 2 reaction drops, which is Esper Tempo, which answers it. And then level 3 is you have the non-blue mages look at the situation and say, well, energy's been dead for a little bit and energy can beat the crap out of the blue deck. Let's all just start playing energy again. And Timeless has gone through like literally dozens of those cycles on a small scale, and it's what it keeps the format interesting.
yeah, no, that's yeah. I've definitely done that. Like I yeah queued into energy. Just like I think I queued into energy after the Soren Storm got to like cooked by Esper Tempo. I queued it for Mardu energy for like a couple days straight, just hoping you run into Esper players. Um, yeah, that was yeah. I think yeah something there's also neat about the Turbo Necro Sorin or Turbos. I don't know.
The Muxus
I've said
deck.
it too many times.
It's called the
Yeah,
Muxus deck at this
Muxus
point.
deck. Okay. It's just like how he only ran like I think like 11 besieged targets like natural besiege targets and
Oh
like the
yeah,
Karmox
that was
of the
a
vault.
gripe I had with it
Really
too.
like
I'm like, I'm trying to add more like fodder to my deck, and then Muxus is telling me it's wrong, and I'm pretty sure he was right after all that.
yeah, it just didn't matter that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was kind of interesting too, because we like I think everyone was kind of based it like everyone's like felt like everyone's kind of foundation was based on Necrostorm, right? Where they run like 18 material, and I think like it was like an Ornithopter spell I'd build, and they're like you need to run like at least like 60 or it's like 16 or 18.
Yeah.
Just they
That
had
was
a
my
very specific
mentality.
number.
Hmm.
What?
I was exactly that guy. I was like, no, Muxus, dude, you're not running the right number of artifacts. What is this? You're not going to hit your critical storm counts. But like, he understood the deck through and through, and still like found all his storm lines through that, and it was a learning curve for me.
Yeah, and you can just actually like it's actually really easy to just generate enough storm out of tendrils off of beseeches. Like you don't actually need that in like you draw so many cards off Necker that you actually don't even need that much like material. Again, which is really interesting because like his deck didn't have like a lot of his deck was just like mana sources, like fast mana, griefs. Like there's not a lot. It was like pretty thin in terms of like actual cards that like are mid-rangey and like can. I mean, actual cards that like do stuff, right? A lot of it was just like combo fodder and stuff like that, and he didn't even have that much like bargain fodder, and it
Yeah.
still played completely fine because you draw so many cards off Necro. Necro is like a natural like besiege target and stuff like that. Like it was yeah, it
Mhm.
was really neat just to see a successful besiege deck with like that low of like bargain fodder count like do well.
Yeah, and like I appreciate when like a player like Muxus rolls through because I had never heard of the guy like 2 months ago. He's like new to the format or whatever, and he comes with his own approach to building like a necro deck, and it's a little bit different. Like we were talking before, how he's fearlessly mulliganing down to 3 or even 2, and people like me and you would say, no, that's crazy. Just play
Yeah,
the
I would still do it.
existing
I'm used to it.
archetype.
But yeah,
But this guy shows up and he shows us something different that works, and we all learn from it. That's cool.
yeah, it was very cool. Yeah, yeah. And it was also cool just seeing like I think he like went from like seeing how good Tendrils was in the main deck and just going to two main deck was like a really good um thing to see. Like it was really neat to see.
Hmm.
Which again, which is not that much of a game plan to do. Like just off the back of like the power of Besiege the Mirror, right? Of course that deck's gonna get worse. Probably like week one with opposition agents running around and shit like that. It was really neat. I think also like yeah, something I think we saw in the calcs was like that like your Besiege starts are not like as likely, and then like your I think there's one petition and the petition starts aren't that likely either. But it was just kind of interesting to see like how much you can drag, like how much you can abuse London Mulligan with just like playing Black Sources, Dark Ritual, and like good 3 mana payoffs. Yeah,
I'm looking at the Mox field for the Muxus deck right now. It's it's his Mox field where he's constantly making changes. He has over 200 changes to the deck. He
yeah,
just
sick.
spent
Yeah, yeah,
weeks tweaking it.
yeah. No, it's been really cool. Yeah,
Yeah, it's been cool to.
yeah,
It's always cool to see like a deck evolve in real time.
mhm. Yeah. I do wonder how like I because I know that was another deck that like I think its fair access was like so bad, that they ended up. I think he had 4 Bar in the side for a while, and they were just never good. They were just
Oh
it's like
yeah,
they're too slow to clock show and tell, and then they just die against energy, right? Like they just like didn't do the thing well enough.
yeah.
Whereas it would be interesting, like opposition agent like might be enough against show and tell on
Yeah.
paper.
And you know what?
Uh,
This is like something I was wrong about because when Barrowgrowth got spoiled, I'm like, okay, this is the new card that we could put 4 copies in every sideboard for our Dark Ritual decks because I love those decks. I want to play 4 Barrowgrowths. I want to win games. And in Legacy, it actually wins games, but in Timeless, it doesn't. Timeless is different. Our board states are different. People are able to chump block your Barrowglyph. People are able to race your Barrowglyph. Those board states are less common in other formats. So I was led to believe that Barrowglyph and like the fair juke in the sideboard would be a lot better than it ended up being.
yeah, I think I don't. I'm trying to think. I think I've taken them out of Golgari because I've just been running Bowmasters instead. And I
Wow.
just go, look, if I have to tap Ancient Tomb to cast my Bowmasters, that's fine. I will take like I've really disliked Bargrave. Yeah, I haven't been registering it a lot online, or at least.
Yeah, and tying back to like one of the original discussion points was like show and tell and how it ran Frog to be a little fair. at one point in the past. Right now, I think is a time where the meta is pretty hostile to that, and why you won't see people doing Barrowglyph. People are playing the removal to respect all the mid-range decks. The mid-range decks can block the Barrowglyph and outrace it. Energy is still a thing, and it's like you said, just not enough of a clock to by itself actually raise show and tell.
Yeah. It is kind of funny that like we're talking about like fair and unfair decks and like, oh, these are like some cool like mid-range strategies that like combo is like boarding into and stuff. And then at the very, at the very end, it's like, okay, but also this is not the meta at all for it. This is actually terrible. Everyone's playing like 10 plus removal. Like, don't do that. It's not the
Well,
time. Just like have it on your
yeah.
radar for sure.
Well, we're going the
But
other way. That's what the meta
yeah,
is. We spend a lot of time talking about mono red, and you're like, yeah, I want to be as unfair as possible with Bombardiers. I just want to kill people out of nowhere. I don't want to play a game that lasts 10 turns. I want to win the game in 5 turns or less.
yeah. No, okay. Now, like thinking about it, like okay, so say just fun scenario now with like, more of the format and context. You're playing Turbo Necro Sorin. You didn't start with a ley line, okay? Your opponent's on mono red. They have like a Bombardier in play. What life total are you like comfortable with? Like what, like 10?
I think the answer is I don't play Turbo Necrosorin anymore. I think Bombardier needs to go down and play. I haven't tried playing a Dark Ritual deck since the set dropped, because like when we were recording it, it was what, 48 hours ago?
Yeah.
So I just tried playing with Bomba myself. I think now is actually a pretty bad time to be jamming Necro when there's so much like burn and reach and haste in the format.
I think that the Necro anticipating like you just have to play so much safer and then like if they don't have a Bombardier, you're just like, man, I could have drawn like five or six more cards because the card is so much more threatening than everything else, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a calculated risk, man. The skill cap of these decks are just really, really high. Like every time I lose on these decks, it's like it could be a skill issue every single time. And now again, I can play around broadside and completely screw it up, or most of the time I'm pretty sure it's going to be correct to force your opponent to have broadside and to necro really aggressively, because otherwise, how are you going to win the game?
Yeah. And like also like turn 3 Sorin is like probably not going to beat mono red as frequently, right? Cuz like you can just you can just deal reach or like, like sack your thing that's like attacking and or so or you can just like you have so much burn that it might not matter. Um yeah, it seems a lot harder to stabilize right now with Bomba.
Yeah, Lenda ahead of schedule is still pretty good. I know
Yeah,
sample size one
I
game,
agree.
but I did lose to it once playing Bombardier in my deck. It is a roadblock if it comes down early enough. But like it just
Yeah,
becomes a
I think
question of
yeah.
when. Was that Alenda ahead of schedule, or was it on turn 3? If it was turn 3 on the draw, it's probably too slow.
Yeah, I think turn 1 2 like probably still plays fine. And they probably just hit your Bomba if it's in play too. Like yeah, it's probably turn 1, turn 2 I like. I think turn 3 is like maybe I don't know. Yeah, you're kind of getting into that like grayer area of things.
All right. Any other cool decks that we can talk about for today?
I know some people have been playing around with the burn list. I don't think that's like that good. Um, I know. I think kind of like the energy shells that you've been talking about. I think are really worth trying. That's probably like my next
Yeah,
visit in the
that's
timeless
what I'm
meta.
gonna play. Like I'm
Yeah.
excited energy is finally changing for the first time in a while, because like I said earlier, there's been two good builds of energy for like a year. Either you play the One Ring or you play the Luris version, and like those cards, those in the deck have been the same. There's not really been innovation. It's been one or two cards changing based on the meta. That's it.
Yeah. Just been a great month of timeless. I can't
Oh
complain.
yeah,
Like
it's
we're
crazy.
like
We got a new format. It is a different format than before. Even
yeah,
if
and then like
nothing ever
vibes.
happens and energy and show and tell are still good, they're going to be completely different builds of both decks, especially with Ponder coming through.
Yeah, and like vibes are really good. I don't think people aren't complaining. We're getting all the new cards that like come to arena. Uh, yeah, I'm very happy with everything. All said and done.
I, I'm kind of mad Necro is like drive-by dead now that you mentioned it, because like I haven't played any of the decks, so I haven't thought about it, but like there's too much reach in this format now, man. Those
I
piles are shelved for a little bit. Like so many
think you
people
still
are
got to
playing
try it. I think you
broadside on
still try it.
Miner.
There
If
are, but like there is also just a lot of like do nothing like judge nonsense and stuff that it might be workable.
Maybe.
Um,
I mean, they're also packing 8 discard spells and Jund nonsense. I know I'm dooming a little bit. We'll see how ladder
yeah,
settles in like a week or two.
yeah, that'd be good. And like I think like Yeah, and a lot of blue deck. Yeah, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Cope running
I'm not
around,
gonna write
Force
off Dark Ritual Necro
Subtlety.
just yet. Yeah.
Yeesh. All right, anything else cool that you're gonna work on other than energy for like the next week or two?
No, I just want to see how strong energy is and if the format's like how like basically how good red white energy plays into like show and tell. And like how much their clock has changed because of Bomba and Gut. I
Yeah.
think that's like or I think that's like the most important thing to figure out right
Yep.
now.
And it's an Ancient Tomb deck now. I'm assuming the Ancient Tomb build is going to be the best one. I'm pretty sure it is. You now get to play Archon of Myriad and Anointed Peacekeepers, who sideboard cards, which is pretty dope against Show and Tell, I
Yeah.
think.
Hmm.
So I think you are actually going to win that matchup without discard, and you're going to get around their Veil of Summer, which is sweet. So now if they start cutting Veil of Summer from their main deck, they're going to start losing to black decks, and maybe this knocks Show and Tell down a peg. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, yeah,
They
that'll be
get
good.
Ponder, by the
Hopefully,
way.
yeah.
Ponder, by the way.
Ponder will save
They
everything.
just get every blue card. They get Ponder, Brainstorm, Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time. Sheesh, dude. It's actually every good blue card ever printed, except Force and Days, but they don't need Force. They're
Yeah,
good
yeah.
enough.
We'll see. Yeah, there's yeah. I know like just wrong half problem is like very like with especially with a card as like impactful as Bombardier now, like the wrong half problem with like if you draw your Commandeers when you wanted to draw your subtleties in the wrong like in a given matchup, like you're in for a rough time. I think it is very, very tough to beat blue right now with like the amount of like just getting these high impact creature threats that are also coming into the format while also like kind of still being obligated to run your 4 Commandeers. I think it's really tough to beat blue.
Oh, definitely. At least they get Force at some point. When does the next one come out? November? The
It's no, it's like
accelerated.
next. Oh no. So yeah, that
Yeah,
comes out in like a month. Everything is like a month now.
yeah. It's the new schedule has got me. It's throwing a wrench into it. I cannot keep track of things anymore. It used to be very predictable, 4 sets a year at the same times too, and
Yeah,
now it's way too fast.
yeah,
And the
but I
spacing
don't
is
mind.
uneven too. This was a fast set Spider-Man. It was only like a month and a half from the last one.
Yeah, but I think they're trickling enough of the powerful cards like at like a reasonable weight that it doesn't feel like quite overwhelming yet. Um,
Yeah, it's not
I think the only
overwhelming.
yeah, I think
The-
Bomba feels like the only like format shaping card. Probably until Force
Ponder.
Negation, I would say.
Yeah, Ponder's really good too.
Yeah, but it's really yeah, it's
It's the decks that
the
don't
fact that
exist
Ponder
yet that
Force is
Ponder
so
enables that I'm thinking about. Like you can build a blue base in a lot of directions.
yeah. I just do wonders like how many decks are gonna run for a Ponder 4X Brainstorm, and I guess that's just show and tell right now that like really
I don't
wants to
know,
do
Blue
that.
Cope might run it. Like that's just a ridiculous amount of card selection if you're the fair beatdown deck.
Yeah,
And then it
that's fair.
also,
Yeah, and you're
if
already
you
on
want to
cruise.
be like if you want to be fair with a little unfair in you, like you have a reanimate Atraxa in your deck, wouldn't you want Ponder to make that combo more consistent? If you have 8 cantrips, it's gonna be crazy consistent, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I just like it's not as yeah, it just like decreases their like it'll decrease the variance some, so that'll be good. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what the format looks like and how like much the decreasing it's like the increasing consistency matters for these blue decks.
I think it's gonna matter a lot. I think 8 cantrips gets you to that point where you pretty much always have one in your opener, and you always get to do like legacy level hand sculpting. I know I'm not much of a legacy player, so I'm kind of talking without expertise here, but I feel like a lot of the blue combo decks in that format always get to open with either a cantrip in their hand or the good card's already there if you don't have a cantrip. It's very rare you get an opening hand that you can't sculpt in the right direction.
That's fair. And it'll be less tilting whenever they ponder into their treasure cruise instead of just top decking it or having it, right? You're
Surely.
like, okay, they had a ponder. They worked for that a little bit.
All right, we're at about an hour runtime if you want to get anything
Okay.
else in before we wrap it up.
I think I'm good. I think that felt good. That was good.
Yeah, that was a fun yap.